ask yourself like what you know, where you see yourself and artistically, like where you want to be.
Right.
Ask yourself what you want first before you go out just trying to pursue something, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do you really want? And
what's in your heart for?
What's in your heart? Exactly.
Nice.
And, you know, because once it's in your heart, you can do it.
Hola, hello, welcome, bienvenidos, ¿cómo estamos? My name is Marcelo Treviño, and this is El Composer Podcast, a show about creating tracks that tell inspiring stories. Composer and musician based in LA, she has toured internationally, served as musical director for Bernhard's I Love Being Me, Don't You album and tour. She's performed at festivals such as the Sundance Film Festival, NXNE, South by Southwest, and Italy's Arezzo Wave Festival. She scored over 30 motion pictures, including My Name is Maria de Jesus for HBO, the Sundance Award-winning film Spa Night for Netflix, and the South by Southwest horror comedy Porno for Shudder. Lakeshore Records recently released her original motion picture soundtrack for Fangoria's Porno 2019. In addition to composing, Carla is a prolific songwriter and has written over 100 songs with placements on Emmy and BAFTA award-winning shows such as The Ellen DeGeneres Show, Skins, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, The Young and the Restless, and many more. Carla's upcoming and soon-to-be-released projects include scoring Trick Studios' animated feature Shadowmaker, the documentary The Life of Dan by Emmy Award-winning director Jeremy Levine, and writing music for her new album, So She Howls. It is a very special honor to have her here today on the show with us, Carla Patullo. Hi, Carla. How are you, Carla Patullo? Thank you. I've just done my intro with all your information. I hope when you hear that, it's nice and informative and full of praise. How are you? It's really nice to talk to you after all these years. I've been lucky enough to follow you and see everything that you're doing. And I want to ask you, I have a lot of questions for you. How are you?
Good. I'm great. And it's great to reconnect with you and follow everything you've been doing as well.
We used to hang out at a computer store. Do you remember those days?
Yes, those days.
Even from my Berkeley days, I was really geeky.
With those
at a computer store. Yeah,
with those very big computers at the time.
That was the era when you remember the colored iMacs came out.
Yes.
Like the shaped, the oval shaped. That was a weird but really cool stage.
Yeah.
Of computers.
Yeah.
G5s I think were coming out.
Right.
Yeah. Long time ago.
That's a long time ago. Yeah. So much has changed with technology.
It was OS 10. That was like a weird thing that we had going on. Like, why? Where are they? What's going on? Why is it based on? It was a big deal. I remember it being strange that things were going that way.
Yeah. And, I remember, we were still recording on those big reels.
Yeah. Yeah.
We sound ancient now, but.
Yes. We even learned the moviola and stuff.
Yeah.
You did film score. What was your major?
Well, I didn't really study that much of film scoring while I was there. I just took like some beginner, introduction to film scoring and stuff like that. But I was very much focusing on songwriting in my band and back then. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I didn't even know I would fall in love with film scoring.
I know. It's amazing how things start to come together.
I know. Life's funny.
After leaving Berkeley, was it your touring stage? I mean, was it your touring era? That was the first one? Okay.
I actually, so I moved to New York after Berkeley and started this rock trio and played all the dive bars in New York and then went on the road with them. And that, I think that is like the foundation of my sound, actually. It's like, I was young and just, experimenting with all these different sounds and,
I'm looking for the name of their band.
White Widow.
White Widow. It's a trio?
Yeah, well, we were a trio, and kind of, I sang though, and wrote the songs, and sometimes, we'd tour mainly like the East Coast, and we went to Europe a little bit, and
you opened for Sandra Bernhard.
I did,
I love her.
She's awesome, and she's throughout my career, she's been a friend and someone that I can kind of just, chat with and, reach out to every once in a while. And I don't know, she's been a great I learned a lot from her. And that was actually a real turning point for me.
Okay. A little bit of a mentor kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And she really opened my eyes to storytelling. Okay. Which is what led me to film scoring more. I used to sing all these songs about my life and,
Yeah. I have questions about songwriting. Don't worry. We'll get into that. It's in my list. Yeah, definitely.
But when I got to working with Sandra, it was, about her story or the story she was telling. So I was really diving into music that was supporting a story. Mm-hmm. And so as I performed with her, I learned about that. And then I started thinking about movies and film scoring and theater and documentaries. And I just kind of, it just opened this whole new world for me. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really great. And I've just loved it. I mean, not that I don't miss my, touring days. I think after a while, it's nice to be in a studio.
Yeah. Well, right now it's tougher to be on tour. But is that something that was left behind? Do you ever think you'll go back to touring with your music or your albums?
I think performing, I've tried to do a couple shows here and there, because I think there's something about that energy. And, when you start making arrangements for the live show and that just sparks. Yeah, it's so exciting. Yeah. And I think it feeds into my sound development and stuff like that. And I think, I don't, as far as like touring and, dedicating myself to being on the road for months and months at a time, never say never, right?
Yeah, but selected shows, maybe select shows.
Yeah.
Shows. Yeah. They're it would be amazing because you could mix your new album stuff with your scoring stuff. It would be amazing. Yeah. Every time I see you, not every time, but in my mind, most of the times that I see you on social media, you're wearing one of those festival badges. You know those they give you for. You love being in festivals, South by Southwest, Sundance, movie premieres. Film festivals, is that something you enjoy?
I really, really love going to film festivals, and I've missed it horribly. Like a few years ago, my partner and I made a short film, and we experienced.
Oh, you produced the whole thing?
Yeah, it was a short animation. So it was a subject that, actually I did go to Berkeley for my master's to do film scoring. Nice. I went back to school after my touring days.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was, it was a challenge. I was in this class with all these young people.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. It was like me entering a different world of orchestral music and stuff like that. I learned a lot. And, but like, the subject of my thesis project, I ended up making a short film with my partner about her. That's how much we love the subject. It's an animator named Lottie Reiniger.
Yes. Is that Shadowmaker?
Yeah. Well, that's the feature that we're working on now.
But it was 2011 or something. You started working. Was it around that?
So no, in 2018, we put out this short film of it.
A short film. Okay.
Yeah.
2018.
And then that's when I really got to go to the film festivals and experience it as a filmmaker.
Okay, yeah.
And I loved it. I thought I met so many great people and all their short stories and their films. I just love the energy. I actually love it more than music festivals, to be honest.
Yeah, the film festivals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it good networking? A place for good networking?
It is. I think it's a good place where you can really connect with people on a deep level. And I think, in a way it's great because it's like, instead of thinking, oh, I want to score every film possible, you end up connecting with the people that you can really make something cool with and you know, and you really just connect with. Yeah.
Yeah. Something you can be really proud of when you
exactly.
Plus, because I've been to a couple, and for me, just my personality is like, oh, so many people.
Yeah.
But and that
it's
kind of freaks me out a little bit. But how do you navigate I want to watch this film, I want to meet this person, I want to hang out, I want to go to a party. Because I feel like it's a lot in concentrated activities in just a couple, 2 or 3 days.
It's really funny you asked that, because I feel like when I first went, I was like, I had this list and I tried to plan, and it was a complete, like, it was stress case. You know, it was just so stressful. But I found that, like, you know, if I have a few movies I want to see, sure. But I like to kind of go with the flow with it.
Yeah. See what comes up.
Go to a party, go to the first party, see who you know, and see who you talk with. And I end up going to the films of people that I meet.
Nice.
And
that feels more, that sounds like a more natural kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's like that thing, you know, like, do you like, if you're in a room with, say, some celebrity or something, do you go make an awkward introduction, or do you kind of just let it happen naturally? Right. Yeah. It's a whole thing, networking. How has it been for you in your career? Has it been something? Oh, you mentioned something at being very natural, but have you made an effort in that regard to further your career stuff? It is hard, because sometimes you're in a place where there's someone that you need to meet. But you don't want to come off as like, you know, you got to kind of
be cool about it.
Yeah. And you know, I am a firm believer that, you know, things will happen, you know, like you know, what's meant to be it's going to happen. You know, I just feel that, you know, you keep putting out your work and stuff that you're proud of. The path will be there, is there. It's just a matter of, time. And, and
keeping at it. Speaking of, how did you get on to working on your first films? Was it via film festivals that you got introduced to the opportunities to score something? Was it before or after your master's, which I find amazing? And I have other questions about the master's that we'll do out of recording time, because it's really interesting, because I've been thinking about doing that, but that has nothing to do with you. So let's get back to you.
Okay. Cool.
How was 2 or 3 things that you thought worked towards starting scoring?
Well, so for me, like Berkeley, Valencia was where I did it, really did open up doors, because I ended up coming to LA. My teacher there, she was there for the year, and I ended up assisting her for a little bit. But my thesis film that I did, we were supposed to score a silent film. And for me, that was a silent film of Lottie Reinecker, the woman who we ended up making a film about. But I actually was able to take that out to film festivals.
Oh, okay.
As a short, because it was public domain, and I kind of made I did lyrics to it. Yeah, so it, so it qualified to be in film festivals, and I think from that experience, I met filmmakers, and things just started happening. You know, I started working on projects, and brick by brick.
One person says, "Oh, you have to work with Carla," and then it starts to move from there on.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself scoring really haunting and beautifully pieced together tracks for horror and dark movies? Because I really enjoyed. I was listening to some of your tracks, and I'm like, wow, how did that happen? Like, how did you get to that?
Well,
not the writing part, like the actual sound, but also the writing part.
Yeah, I mean, I think like. So for example, the score for Porno.
In South by Southwest.
Yeah, that was part of the Sundance lab that I did for, and they connected me with that director, Keola. Okay. And so I was kind of just thrown into that project, though my rock band days kind of had this like edge and darkness to it. So I felt like that. Yeah, my vocals, that kind of just came in natural. So I feel like they paired me with that very well. Like, and so we off the bat had this connection. artistically, like me and Carla were really vibing, and so it was great. And I think, like sometimes, like you're brought on a project and it's, very quick, right? Yeah. Like you need to turn it around, and not that we had a whole lot of time, but because it was part of the lab, we got to experiment and really find that voice of the film, which, I wish,
sometimes you don't, I wish we had time to do that.
More often, right?
Yeah.
And, it's funny because like I think we all, like film composers, it's a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
But you want to do more of the work to develop that sound and make a great score.
Yes.
And, so.
Yeah, as much previous time that they give us would be great.
Yeah.
Just in terms of developing themes and stuff that helps out.
Yeah.
Even loading stuff up on your whatever, having stuff available as sounds or sound design and
Yeah. Like with Porno, I was really lucky because my voice is a lot of the score. So I kind of already had a palette for that. Right. Okay. I had, I was already before experimenting with, running different plugins and, I also was creating a library. I'm continuing to with my vocals just through contact, but just different, every once in a while I'll think of different things I can do with my voice and then I sample it and,
Yeah, well, that's a conversation I also have to have with you more on the business side because with El Luchador Audio, I tell you, we're doing libraries and stuff. So I'll try to entice you to join the team. But,
cool.
Because that would be amazing. But so you already had some of the elements to create some of the sounds you were thinking about incorporating into the film, right?
Yeah, I did. And, that's very lucky, I think,
Okay. Yeah, because the time constraints sometimes.
Yeah. And so, but, it was interesting because, as I met the character, there's a demon in a female demon in the film.
Yeah.
And through the lab, Kayla and I realized that my voice could kind of be her narrative.
Okay.
And because she doesn't really have dialogue, she makes all different kinds of sound, but she doesn't really speak. Okay. And so we knew that vocals could kind of be this like nice. Her theme, and so we really played with that, and it was fun.
When you start a film or documentary, is there in terms of starting with there's spotting sessions and all that.
Right.
But when you actually start writing, are you more, and I ask this question a lot because it's a kind of a bare basic question, but it gets us into other things. Are you more a melodic writer in that regard, thematic or texture? I know it depends on the project, but how do you find yourself working most of the time?
Most of the time I'm melodic. Okay. I think of themes, and I think that comes from being a singer. I'll take my phone and hopefully have a theme and,
do you have a bunch of notes with no names?
Yeah, I do. I'm like, okay, this,
What was this for? Sounds really good.
Yeah. As long as I'm just ripping off myself.
Yeah, of course.
But, I have all the, I've always, thought that way, I think, first. I mean, it's a challenge and I love it though, coming onto a film that doesn't want a lot of melodic material and it doesn't call for it. So, I've been really playing with just thinking texturally and building kind of my palettes and sounds that way too. So, yeah.
Do you go back to playing? Because I know you're starting cello, but you play guitar, you play piano, the uke sometimes too.
Yeah.
Saxophone. Was it saxophone?
Saxophone. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. So have you gone back to those during the texture part of it? Like, I want to see if I can find some textures with my instruments playing.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned the cello because I'm just so new to it. But I've been using it already just to create loops.
Okay. Nice,
I mean, I don't really, I'm not a real cellist, but it's so fun taking a new instrument that you really don't know that much about.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives you this open-mindedness to like, let me just create a sound with this. Any sound, you're not like perfecting your, certain other elements and, your pitch and stuff like that. You're just like, let me
Your fingering or your...
Yeah, like, let me just think of creating anything with this.
Okay.
And it's I find that really cool, different instruments. Yeah.
But isn't it frustrating that because you've written cello 20,000 times, lines, and composed and programmed and actually recorded them live and in orchestral situations remotely and locally. Isn't it frustrating to hear it in your head but not being able to do it physically?
It is. Yeah, okay. It is. And, and I kind of, working with MIDI, I mean, we're so lucky this day and age to have that as a tool, but it's, trying to express it on MIDI as much as you can. You really have to have an open mind, and an imagination.
And know how to draw stuff. And
and so, and really be able to communicate with the musicians as to what you really want. And, sometimes I'll double my voice in parts.
Okay.
Just to, if I really want this vibe, and especially, when you're recording remote.
That's amazing.
You can have...
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah,
you adding the human voice element to something else.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
cool. Because, there's so much, I mean, even with the score, I try to put everything in the score. Okay, and then it's like, oh, geez, I just wish they could just listen to, hear this track on top and they would totally get it.
Right. How often do you get to get the musicians in an orchestral setting to hear the actual all of the other elements that you have on your session?
I find different players still, like, I think certain sessions don't like, they're like, no.
Yeah. Like, just do this and then you can do whatever afterward. Okay.
Yeah. But, I always put it in my files and I try to get them to, in my stems.
Right.
And when I work with like a smaller group, I have a great friend out, Maria, out in Russia that I work with a lot for just string quartets kind of stuff right now. And, she's like aware of my style and, I always include my vocals so she can, go with that vibe.
Nice. Are you mixing some of the stuff that you're doing, or you have somebody helping you out with your cues and stuff?
Well, when there's a budget that I can include a mixer with, I love to work. There's 2 mixers that I work with, but I primarily work with Daniel Cresco. Okay. He's a great guy out here. But a lot of times there's just not the budget for it. And to be honest, I kind of mix as I go, right? Like, so I think it's important to do that because at the end of the day, you don't want to be sending something completely new to the director that they've already signed off on.
Right. Because it's like, what happened to the first? Plus, they can fall in love with the demo or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
The rough mix. Yeah.
Yeah. So I try to keep things how I'm going to have it, especially I have a lot of like vocal layers. Like I want, I tend to, even with do pre-mixes, right? Okay. Before I send it to someone else to mix them too. So.
Yeah. How are you doing? I'm getting really geeky here. How are you doing tech-wise with computers? And do you have the server? Are you putting stuff on Vienna or just on Logic or loading, unloading? How do you? Do you have a template?
I was working with Vienna, but you know what? Actually, the last few years, I've stripped down my work very much. Actually, I'm just running things off of one computer right now. You'll die, but it's the trash can.
I have one too.
Yeah. And I mean, and I have a pretty basic setup. Just, that and my Apollo and, I'm doing an upgrade once I get into my studio, but, it's been working. I've tried thinking, okay, keep this as simple as possible so that when I sit down and compose, I can just compose and not get interrupted.
Start loading and unloading stuff.
Definitely. Yeah. And I do have a template. I do have a couple basic templates set up.
Okay.
I don't write, full orchestral scores all the time. And I think that's why my Mac situation has worked out for me this long. A lot of times I'm doing kind of indie films where, there isn't a budget for an orchestra anyway. So,
so it's 2 or 3 elements that you're adding and it gives it the whole thing. Yeah.
And I like to build sound templates as I go per film.
Okay. Do you have stuff that you load, like sets of stuff, or do you load channels from other projects that you're, that was pretty cool. Let me see if I can.
I actually do that.
Okay.
I do I do keep a really good log of my previous projects and sound. Sometimes even I'll come across, a sound and I'll start playing with it. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't really like this for this project anymore. But, and so I start creating these, I actually do it old school via notebook. I write down what my thoughts about the
like
sound.
little archives.
Yeah.
Notes. Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. When you start doing, because I've been lucky to jump from different stuff, but like documentaries, I know are a very different way of working music in terms of how you approach the score, and then you have your own albums, which I want to ask you a little bit about and later on, and then films, documentaries, and specifically, how have you noticed that that's a different for people who are starting to score and want to do documentaries? How you found that the approach to those are a little bit different than films or songwriting, or I mean, definitely songwriting. There's a big difference, but I mean, do you know what I mean?
They are pretty different. I mean, first of all, I mean, I guess what's the similar is that you still have to carve out like an arc for it, right? And for your music, right? And I do find a lot more in documentaries that there's a lot of time being covered, right?
You need to cover more time during the project?
Right. Okay. Well, no, like a lot of times in a documentary, it's like, okay, this is over this. Yeah, you have to cover like the time that you're in, right?
There's more time to write for, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I feel like, a lot of times you'll have a lot more music because of that, because things need to tie together more.
Yeah. So you find yourself moving more like a music editing mindset.
Yeah. And I think like also there's more, a lot of cues really are, and it's interesting. I'm curious to compare this also with like action films, but I feel like you're really pushing the film forward a lot of times with documentaries.
Okay.
And, I still try to build out themes the same way I would in a narrative film. But yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, they are kind of similar actually, because you're just you are telling and supporting a story. But you're also like moving and trying to make it very seamless, which you do in a narrative, but it's a little bit more jagged in a documentary because you have archival footage, you have all different kinds of elements that are coming together. So you melding it together is more of a challenge, I think.
Right. Making it seamless. Yeah. I also find that with documentaries, like you said, you're sometimes you're scoring and you're like, oh my God, they're dwelling on this topic for 5 minutes more than I think. Because you've seen it 3 or 4 times, and that's just a natural response after seeing something several times. It's like, oh my God. So, and then you have to transform that thought into, okay, so maybe this is where I need to.
Right.
At this point of the scene, maybe this is where I need to start pushing it a little bit forward.
Yeah. And I also feel like in docs, the arc is, a lot of docs, they have they wrap up the ending. Like sometimes you feel like there's 3 endings.
Oh, yeah, because sometimes they're talking about one thing and then they wrap that up and then they transition to something else and it starts from scratch. Like in 19th, and then, oh my God, you're back to 0. Okay, yeah.
There's really more of a wave, and and making it feel like this one film is a challenge, and kind of tying it together. I think when it comes to editing films, documentaries are so hard. In editing documentaries, there's so much more footage available to them. Yes. And so, they're just pulling footage from everywhere. So really making this cohesive film and the score helping with that, I think, is the challenge. Yeah.
Can you share with us a little bit of the documentary you're working on? I think it's
Aura Untamed.
Aura Untamed.
Yeah. Really great film. I just actually wrapped on that. And
it's a documentary or a film? It's
a documentary, yes. Okay. And it's about 30 minutes long, so it's considered a short, I guess. Yeah. But it's a long short.
It's a long short, yeah.
It's really, it's kind of hybrid in a sense that, it's about a child who kind of goes is in the pandemic. We watch her through the pandemic and through the Black Lives Matter movement, and her kind of realizing that this, you know, racism, how it exists in the world, and seeing it through the point of view of a little girl. Okay. And it's magical, but then also just like heavy.
Yeah.
Powerful. And you know, with that film, the story was so beautifully laid out. And, you know, I don't know how much material she was pulling from, but not much of it was, you know, archived. I think it was all just beautiful footage she captured. And the way that I just felt like the music didn't have to do too much. Like it amplified it here and there. Okay. You know, it brought out elements that she had. And you know, I think those type of films where it's like, you know, you're brought in and it's like, you don't have to recreate this whole thing because they did this amazing job where it's there. Yes. You know, you just have to, you know, give it a little.
A little bit of I was going to ask you because it being such an important and heavy theme and subject, how deep do you have to go? But I see that now the foundation was really strong, so you can just kind of move around and help here and there.
Yeah, it really was. It was, you know, I think it, you know, it's not to say, you know, that, you know, there's films where it really needs a moment, right?
Right.
And it really needs the music to step in. And, you know, that's great too. Sometimes, you know, that's what we're here for. You know, I think like, you know, it's cool when a director allows music to play that role, yes. Right?
yes. A little bit of like, you go, do it. Like,
yeah, you know, like this, like, you know, they decided they wanted music to take this lead, right?
Yeah.
And then in this film, it's really awesome to come on board in a film where it's already laid out and you're just, you know, pulling the heartstrings. Like maybe it's sad without music, but now you're making them cry and like,
right. You're just kind of the last 10-20% or something.
You just pull it up a little.
That's amazing. That's amazing. When you approach, or for example, with Shadowmaker, I'm really interested in Shadowmaker because I've been working on animation stuff for 10 years or something. Yeah, I just kind of fell into that. It was weird because my final project in film scoring at Berkeley everybody chose other stuff, and I chose an animated clip.
Oh, and so cool.
Unbeknownst to me, I kind of had that in the background, but then I went into to do other stuff, and I came around to animation and just fell in love with just doing music for that. But cool. so I have a lot of questions about how you've been doing with Shadowmaker. Could you tell us a little bit about the project? You mentioned it a little bit, but maybe tell us a little bit about the project and your approach.
Sure, yeah. So this is interesting because it came off the short Lottie, that silhouette girl. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that I'm also co-directing the film.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So in a way, like, you know, you might think, oh, it's easy, I get to do what I want, but I actually feel like I'm constantly Jekyll and Hyde battling myself.
I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who's done those two things.
Yeah, well, I think it's actually hard because now, like, you're constantly like questioning yourself from different angles. But you know, it's, you know, I've been doing it with my partner. We're in the early stages still, you know, just working on the animatic. And so, but the cool thing is I'm already thinking about music and I've been composing already for it.
Wow,
Yeah. And this film is stop motion. So it's in the style of Lottie Reiniger. And, you know, Lottie Reiniger was this, she created the first feature-length animation a decade before Disney. So it's about her story and kind of how she got lost in history. And, but it's also, we're using her animation technique, which I've learned a lot about, you know, the last 6 years. And it's one of those things that looks easy, but it's really hard and it takes a lot of patience. And so, you know, it's what's cool about the project is it's one of those projects where you're involved early and you get to develop a sound and you get to really, you know, take it all in and, you know, and I think that's why it'll be a special project for me because, you know, I'll have that time to really develop it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can fire and rehire your composer.
Yeah, I know.
And there would be no hard feelings.
Yeah.
There's well, it's amazing because you can start pairing both things together at an early stage.
Yeah.
And, thinking about, textures in both worlds, I guess.
Yeah.
One way to think about it. How is that? What's the sound for it? Is it going to be, what are you thinking in terms of the sound for the score?
I am kind of thinking about, because it takes place, a lot of it takes place in Berlin. Okay. And then there's another part that takes place in London. So I definitely, for the Berlin part, want to get into that style of music in that time, just kind of some big band stuff and,
nice.
Yeah. And have a contrast.
What era is it?
It's like, the 1920s.
20s. Okay.
To the 1950s, basically.
Okay.
So
stuff jumped in my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so much, that was a real rich period in Berlin. And I think there's so much to be inspired by as far as our music goes. And, I think, and then kind of contrasting that with what was going on in her older life. So, part of the story is her flashback to her young life in Berlin and her, So I'm going between these two worlds. And, it's kind of developed.
Wow,
and
that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah,
a lot
it
of
is.
creativity and a lot of mind, like lots of brain work. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because I find I start going so deep, like, oh yeah. And then this can be that. And then you're like, this is like way too much. This is way too complicated. Let's just come back.
Yeah. Take it easy. I totally get it.
Yeah.
It's going to be super. I want to follow up with you on that in the next months to come, because that's super interesting to me that you're working on not only the scoring the animation part of it, but actually creating and being part of the project itself. It's amazing. Congrats.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Can I jump into your songwriting part of your world? Because that's also been, because you're a prolific songwriter. You've done hundreds of songs and with really cool placements on Emmy nominated stuff and BAFTA nominated stuff. And on your daily life, do you go, I'm going to do songwriting today, I'm going to do scoring today? How do you jump back from one thing to another? Have you done a lot of songs lately, or?
Yeah, I actually am in this world right now where I've been working on an album, but it's not necessarily, it's like in between song and score.
Okay.
And that's
that's super interesting.
Yeah, because I used to, and I haven't really written lyrics in a long time, to be honest, like a few years. And I think I've just been pulled into this world of instrumental music and now, but like my voice is like, well, I still want to be a part of it. And so
bring me back. Yeah.
And so I've been doing that, and it's like in this in-between world I feel like I'm in. And, I think for a while I was writing songs in mind for television, and it was a great experience, and it opened my eyes to scoring and stuff. But, I think I got to a point with that where I was like, I don't know how much more I want to do with that, and I just want to keep growing. And I just, I just want to keep, where is this going to take me next, Right. And
What's your take on composers and their own instrumental albums? Because that's something that I think that's something that's been happening in the last maybe 10 years or something. Not something that's been like adjudicated. What's the
right.
word? Like you don't relate one thing to another in terms of the skills or the profession or something, in terms of just having an album as a screen composer.
Right. I mean, I love it. I think that there, I think about like people, I think like Max Richter would be like a good person who kind of puts out his own albums and then, does film scores. And I don't know. I think there's something nice about it, because personally with albums, I feel like that's where I really grow.
Okay.
And find my voice, literally. Right. But I try to do like an EP or an album and really like just develop new ideas, that are, that aren't like to a film. I think it's nice to explore that world. Right. And I think for me at least, once I go back to doing a film, it just adds this, new discovery or new, I've aged to that point, right?
It's like an experimental thing, right?
Yeah. And I also find this with doing like theater work. Like, I've been working on a musical for a while, which is like a blues country thing. But somehow I feel like, I go to compose a score and I'm like, oh, I've got this blues thing going on in my head and it comes out on the flute. And, but it's cool, because it's, I don't know, it's just this world that you as an artist can give yourself. And I think there's so many, we're all using like a lot of the same sample libraries. And I mean, of course, unless you're really taking the time to develop your own, but how do you stand out as a composer? And
right.
What's your sound,
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it, like an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a composer. Because there's no restraints in terms of where the framework is, what the characters are, what the sync is, what the tempo is, what the sound has to be, and not that that's not good, that's our job, but there's no, you're your own director, I guess, in terms of the album.
Right. And and you give yourself that space to discover yourself.
How's it been going with the new one, with your new album, So She Howls? It's
going. I mean, I've been recording this I started it really at the end of 2019.
Okay.
And, I've recorded different groups on it. And I did get to work with, I think I was just in this pandemic funk where I'm like, this sucks. Like, I can't play with anybody. I can't be because before I had set out that I really wanted this album, I wanted to be in the room with everyone. And I wanted to do almost like a live tattoo, actually. Okay. And, of course, that dream got squashed right away. And so there was this drummer that I'd loved, that I've always loved, named Matt Chamberlain.
Of course,
yeah. And so I was like, yeah, that guy's my dream drummer,
Yeah, of course. Why? Yeah.
And
having a session with him is like, you can check that off. Yeah.
And so I reached out to him. Just cause I was like, we're all in the pandemic. What do we have to lose? Let me just reach out and see. And of course he was, in the pandemic too.
Yeah.
And had some time to kill. And so he kindly enough joined the project. And so I've been working with him and,
that's amazing.
And I'm just been taking my time with it. And the music is very much between, they're not songs, but they're somewhere in between.
That's amazing. I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. How's it? How I didn't want to start with that because I've noticed in most of the episodes that I recorded during the pandemic, I always start. So how's it going on these really strange times? And then everybody's like, well, we used to always be inside because we're composers. But so I didn't want to start with that. But how's it been for you? Is it something? Was it tough? How's do you feel like you're going out of it now, or you're still in the same rhythm?
It was tough. I definitely feel a change though now this year, as things have been getting better, I guess, we just got put back to a mask mandate here in LA, but hopefully I think, personally, there was a change that happened at the end of last year politically.
No, I totally agree.
That inspired me, that made me feel hope.
Yes.
And,
openness. Certainty, truthfulness.
Yeah. And I think, nothing's perfect, right? But I think, when you have a movement, because we've been so still through the pandemic, it's like, then you have this movement and just a little bit of positivity, it can help. And I feel like things have been getting back. I feel like productions are back. I feel like people are moving with their productions and I think work is starting to come back.
Yes, it's tough because we got hit with zero. Everything went to zero, right?
Yeah.
In terms of creatively, how did you feel like there was a change, or was it more of introspective, or maybe you were busy, or how did it work for you?
It was
personally?
both. I have something good I've done is I've figured out a way to always keep myself busy.
Okay.
Like if I don't have a film scoring gig, then it's like I need, I'm developing sounds or I'm doing something. I'm working on my album. I'm working on a musical. Like I have these.
Yeah, of course.
I'm doing stop motion.
Even stop motion, directing the film. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like the pandemic, it did feel slow, but it also, I pushed myself to do work on myself, basically. I pushed myself to work on myself and make the most of what you have, and be grateful for it.
Yeah.
I think about, and I've thought about this, people's careers, like no one's ever like up here. Maybe there's a few people who are up here all the time, right? But it's like, you got to take the highs and lows of life. And
it's part of growing as a composer, as an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, really nice to hear all this information from you and all these anecdotes. I want to thank you so much because it's so much information that's going to be super nice and helpful. And speaking of that, to composers who were like us when we were hanging out at the computer store, what would you tell them? I get asked this a lot, and I guess you do too. But what's your quick question for composers who love music, who love writing or songwriting, who want to do cool stuff like you've been doing?
Yeah, I would say, ask yourself like what where you see yourself and artistically, like where you want to be.
Right.
Ask yourself what you want first before you go out just trying to pursue something, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do you really want? And
what's in your heart for?
What's in your heart, exactly.
Nice.
And because once it's in your heart, you can do it. That sounds a little cheesy, but
it's a perfect way to end the chat. That's super nice. Thank you for sharing all of this with us. I'm going to do a super outro with all your information, carlapatullo.com and all that. And I'll thank you again. I say thank you very much all the time because that's how my brain works. But thank you so much. Anything else you want to share with us? It's really cool to talk to you.
I think we covered, I think it was great. I had so much fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. A beautiful studio. Oh, you're building a studio.
Yes.
I almost forgot. It's amazing. I'm going to keep checking your don't stop posting stuff because it's really interesting.
I will. I'm going through different phases. I'm actually just doing wiring right now. So I'm figuring out which wires I need and all the cables and stuff. So
yeah, because you're doing everything, woodwork, your sound, everything, soundproofing, everything from scratch, right?
Yeah.
Super interesting.
Yeah, I will definitely. I love the process is fun. So I'll definitely share.
Yes. And I'll give out all your info and then we'll have show notes and everything. So it'll be nice. Thank you so much again. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll be more. I promise to be more in touch. I've been really bad about that. I'm sorry.
Talk more and hear more about you. We talk too much about me. So
well, you're my guest. I'm not allowed to talk about me. Even though sometimes I slip and I'm like, yeah, I love that too. And I'm good at that too. And that's weird. So no, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really nice. And we'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
So very cool. Thank you so much, Carla. You can find all of Carla's information at carlapatullo.com. Also on Instagram as Carla Patullo. And you can listen to her music on Spotify and Apple Music. Check it out. It's amazing. And this is episode number 22. Thank you for listening. Thank you for everybody who's been subscribing. Just wanted to mention really quickly that you can find our store. Our sponsor is El Luchador Audio. I don't think I've mentioned this before, but I'm very excited about it. El Luchador Audio is a premium creator of audio tools and audio content for producers, songwriters, composers, sound designers, music students, and music fans. And we want to provide our community and customers with audio tools and content that will allow them to be inspired and to create and tell their stories, make some really great music. You can check out our first product called Los Hybrid Rock Drum Loops. Check it out on elluchador.audio. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, and all that jazz. See you in the next one. Bye.